who's on the internet with us tonight that we do record this meeting. So if you don't want your name divulged or remove your name or put in an avatar. So we do record the meeting. So welcome to the Coalition of Firewise Communities, our February meeting, the first one of this year. Thank you all for joining us. And I'm Bob Long. I'm the outgoing chair of the coalition. And I've been told that I've neglected to mention all the people who work behind the scenes to get this done. And so as one of my last official acts, I need to introduce everybody. So the outgoing vice chair is Susan Rogers. She's been working on the coalition for 3 years since its inception. And certainly I thank Susan for all the help she's been to me. Virginia is our secretary, and she's the one who set the meeting up tonight, and we'll be setting them up in the future. And she keeps our minutes, so thanks to her. Jeff is our tech guru, and if it weren't for him, you wouldn't be getting any email messages, and your questions that you ask of the coalition would never get answered because I certainly wouldn't be able to find my way into that box. We have a couple of new people that are working with us. I don't know if Bob Garza is with us tonight, but Bob is going to be on our, I don't know what we're going to call it, steering committee, admin committee, I don't know what we are.
Advisory.
That will help. What are we?
Advisory committee?
Advisory committee that will help manage the coalition going forward. And Bob is going to be responsible for the content and the order and the agenda of our Tuesday night meetings. And then last but not least, and we'll introduce him more later, is the new chair of the coalition, Scott Beasley. So he'll be up later on in the meeting. And so not to break with tradition, I do have a question of Jim Mathias, and that is, what kind of shoes does a ninja wear?
Okay, you got me.
Sneakers.
That's terrific.
And then last but not least, I just thought y'all would like to know, I ordered a chicken and an egg online.
Okay.
I'll let you know. You got to think on that one.
What comes first, Susan?
Yeah. Anyway, so going down the line here, just some reminders. This is the time for everybody who's the chair of a Firewise community. This is the great time to start planning your spring project. April and May is the time for spring project. May is Firewise community. One of the weekends in May, and I forgot which one it is Firewise Community Weekend. So this is the time to start thinking about that. Ready, set, go. Let's not forget about that. Don't forget to sign up for Code Red. Remind your neighbors to sign up for Code Red. And be sure to bookmark the Ready Nevada County dashboard, which is one of the greater things that's happened over the last year. It's a wonderful dashboard, a wonderful website, and certainly helps us. Don't forget to remind your neighbors if they have any questions about what's going on in the community, and especially about any emergencies that are happening, they should call 211. Never dial 911 unless it's an emergency and you're requesting help from law enforcement or safety personnel. This is a great time of the year to start planning your evacuation destinations. Be sure you plan for more than one because you're not sure which way you're going to head out of town. And practice these evacuation routes. Make sure that you know which direction to go, because if it's dark or smoky, a lot may depend upon your memory. And make sure you have your out of area contacts handy. And remember to do both. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Anyway, make sure you have your emergency contacts listed and you know how to contact them. so those are the reminders. And so we'll go into our monthly updates. And as usual, Chief Matthias, you're up first.
Okay, normally I'd have jokes, but all I have tonight is a very sincere thank you, Bob, for I know you're not going anywhere, so it's not like we're reading a eulogy here, but man, we've been blessed with a lot of good people, but I will tell you, your leadership has been terrific, and you have really added a lot to this community. So thank you very much. And
Thank you.
yeah, no, thank you, sir, sincerely. And I did talk with Bob, and I said, hey, if there's anything you can pass down before you kind of pass the torch, I was hoping that you could. And he just, he tried to teach me a couple of things like he always does. And so he said, in the spirit of winter, who's Frosty's favorite ant? It's Antarctica.
Yeah.
Frosty, Antarctica. Okay. And you know what snowmen call their offspring, right?
Snowball.
Children. Yeah, okay, anyway. All right, so I will not give up my fire service career for that, and I'll move on to some updates for CAL FIRE. And what I want to do is kind of recap. I haven't had much of a chance to recap last year. So I want to remind us of why we're doing all the hard work we're doing and all the good things that you're doing up and down the state of California. In the last year, the year 2020 was a banner year, both good and bad, and there was just a lot of bad and destruction that went along with it, totaling 8,112 fires in the SRA, that's outside of city limits up and down the state of California. 1.5 million acres were destroyed in the SRA, basically 9,950 structures. The dog does not like that at all. A record-setting year for burned acreage, 4.2 million acres in California altogether. So just a huge amount of stuff. So let's lock that down a little bit to the Nevada Yuba Placer unit in Nevada County. In the Nevada Yuba Placer unit, we had 341 fires, and that totaled 2,393 acres. We had 125 fires just in Nevada County. So 124 in the Jones fire for 125. 779 acres total in Nevada County. 705 of those were the Jones fire. All other fires totaled 74 acres. And so in CAL FIRE, our goal is to have 95% of our fires out at 10 acres or less. So seeing as how we had 74 acres on all the other 778 fires, we definitely achieved that goal. And that goal was achieved not just with suppression resources, that goal was achieved through the work of what you folks are doing. So if you need some inspiration, I would just take those numbers and say that we saw it on all of our fires, how fuels reductions have contributed, and that word is getting out. It's never been like this. I've never seen this in my career with community involvement and the good work that you folks are doing. So what do we have to come? What's our predictions? I don't know. I couldn't tell you for sure. What the long range experts and planners are telling me is that we're in a La Nina winter, right? So that means that we're going to have colder weather than normal and drier. Even though we've been having snow and rain, and it just looks like it doesn't stop. Remember, fire season didn't end until December 28th. So we went a long time into fall and winter without having any measurable precipitation or anything that changed what was going on. We had engine strike teams and hand crew strike teams in Southern California for wind events in January. We are not out of the wood, folks. The grass loading looks like it's probably going to be average to below average, but the 1,000-hour fuels, which means that our big trees and things like that are going to be more dry than they have been. Remember, we're still reeling from the 2015 drought. There's still a lot of dead trees, and my partners, the foresters that I work with, were reminding me as we were driving around to look at the horizon. and look at the trees that are supposed to be evergreens and green all year round. There's a lot of them that are turning like Christmas trees in January to a different color. So the tree mortality that we were experiencing after the 2015 drought and before that, we're experiencing that in Nevada County. Most of that was in Southern and Central California, but I believe that's moved up here. And I am hearing them toss around the D word, the drought word, every once in a while. So just look at that horizon and look at those trees, and we are definitely not out of the woods, so to speak. So what's CAL FIRE doing for all that? We extended our fire season, so we kept our folks on longer last year. We'll probably bring them on earlier this year. Of course, that's all weather and fuels dependent. We know that we have a problem with our camp depopulation across the state. We closed down 4 conservation camps in the North State and 4 in the South State, and that has to do with the depopulation of some inmates and early releases. So we're low on those hand crews that we would normally have. So we've bolstered them with our National Guard program. We currently have a National Guard hand crew based out of Nevada City that can have up to 24 folks. So our Washington Ridge hand crews have anywhere from 12 to 15 people. The National Guard hand crews have anywhere from 18 to 24. And I will tell you, those are some solid workers. Those folks, the National Guard has stacked the deck with us. And even though we have larger numbers, they also gave us some great workers. So I'm very impressed with what they do. They were our only hand crew assigned to this unit all the way through November and December. All of our other hand crews were out fighting fires up and down the state, and they're what held Nevada County, Placer County, and Yuba County in check. And so that's a great resource for us. We've got a year-round fuels reduction crew. They're based out of the up off of Loma Rica Drive by the airport, and that's 9 to 12 people, several pieces of equipment, and they're working every single weekday out there reducing fuels. They've been doing a ton of work over in Placer County on the North Fork fuel break. As soon as they get those piles burned and they get that project wound up, then they're going to start moving kind of over in our direction. But in the meantime, we'll be working on that. We also got 4 Blackhawks in CAL FIRE. We had 2 throughout this fire season, 1 based out of Vina and 1 was a reserve. We now have 4 in operation, and we're expecting 4 more this calendar year. So that'll be a total of 8 of the Blackhawks, which is the military version of the helicopter. It completely updates our old platform of the old Hueys, the Vietnam era and before Hueys. Those were quality ships. They're still in service. They still do a good job for us, but the new ships hold more water and fly considerably faster, and they can fly at night. So it's all positive for us there. So what are we going to do in the Nevada Yuba Placer unit to work on fuels reduction? We're still concentrating our efforts on Ponderosa. We definitely want to see that come to completion. We're updating our 2021 fire plan right now. So now's the time to talk with your battalion chiefs about if you have some projects that you want to get in their ignition plan. And the advantage to getting into their ignition plan is our eyeballs are on it, right? That's number 1. And number 2, it really frees up the ability to have grant monies given to your project. So talk with your local battalion chiefs about that, and that'll really help them out. We are proud to say that up and down the state of California, the Nevada Yuba Placer unit was the 3rd best at doing fuels reduction. We did a total of 1,295 acres to completion of fuels reduction throughout our unit. So that's a pretty impressive number. Over 10,000 hours, human hours dedicated to that, and over 8,800 in 40 hours of equipment. So we were at 1,295, and the unit that came in 4th place was 673. So we were almost twice ahead of our 4th competitor, which is pretty cool. And it's and we will keep that and turn up the volume and see if we can do a better job. The projects that we're going to continue on, like I already mentioned, was the Ponderosa fuel break. We want to concentrate on evacuation routes, Nevada County roads, the South Yuba Rim projects kind of coming together. That's a correlation of a whole bunch of different projects along the Yuba River or along the rim and down into that canyon. We haven't forgot about our friends in Cascade Shores. I've already talked with our engine company out of Nevada City, and when the weather's right and the conditions are right, there's a whole bunch of piles out on some county property that we're going to work on and try to get those burned up and get some fuels reduction for you folks out there on the county property. So there's I think they said that there's about 50 piles, 15 to 20 feet high, and we want to get rid of those things for you out there. So where we're at with grant funding, now that I talked about it, I don't really know. Nobody can really tell you. The governor's budget hasn't really been finalized, hasn't really come out. We know that COVID is going to affect that. It's going to affect budget dollars in multiple different directions, and we just don't know where that's going to end up. Anyway, that's what I got for you, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Next on the list is Chief McMahon. Is Terry with us? I don't see him.
Terry's
So-
not on tonight.
Okay, so our Assistant Fire Marshal, Patrick Mason, what have you got for us?
So I'm going to just kind of go over our stats from last year, just kind of a year in review for our DSI inspectors. Last year, we had a total of 212 cases. 147 of those were complaint driven and 65 were proactive. Now that we've got our one full-time and two temporary DSI inspectors, we've kind of transitioned over during the winter months to be a little bit more proactive. Of those cases, we had 59 of them that were unfounded. And when I talk about unfounded, it's pretty much it's when we receive a complaint, we go out and we look at it and there's nothing we can enforce from the ordinance side for the clearance. In compliance, of those 212, we have 67 of those that were in compliant by the end of the year, and 4 of those were after the citation phase had begun. So carryover cases from 2020 is a total of 86. Moving forward right now, we do have plans middle of February to hold interviews and hire our third part-time DSI inspector. So that'll put us at full staff and just right coming into the summer months. So that's what I got right now.
Okay, thank you very much. So next, OES, is Paul Cummings with us?
Hey Bob, how are you? Yep, I'm here.
Hi. What you got?
Yeah, so OES, this is kind of the off season for us. This is where we look back at our program and determine, you know, what did we do over the last year, kind of like CAL FIRE did. What do we want to do moving forward into 2021? So we've reviewed our goals, and I'll just run through those real quick of, you know, what OES focuses on and what we're going to look at into 2021. So our first initiative is to increase evacuation safety programs countywide to save lives, and those are going to be doing things like working with Public Works to do roadside brushing. Our second initiative is to improve countywide early warning systems and emergency communications, and you heard Bob talk about Code Red. So that's going to be working with 211, Code Red, working with communities like this to just make sure that we have solid messaging systems in place using our dashboard and things like that. Third initiative, to reduce fire severity and intensity through fuels management by increasing defensible space, affordable green waste disposal, and fuel break implementation. I think some of that complements what you heard Chief Matthias talk about. That's things like the Ponderosa project. And I'm sure many of you participated in the green waste event last year, which was highly successful. A milestone for us, our goal was to collect 500 tons. We actually collected 5,050 tons, so 10 times our expected tonnage collected there. And we do want to thank, I want to thank the Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District for a grant that they provided that really helped us do that. So we're going to continue to try to run those programs next year. Our fourth initiative is to provide a coordinated approach to wildfire preparedness through advocacy, community engagement, project implementation. That's meetings like this. That's trying to bring our plans to life, like our local hazard mitigation plan, our community wildfire protection plan, some of our other annexes. And then lastly, to plan and train for, respond to, and recover from all hazards with a specific emphasis on wildfires. And what we learned this year was, OES now has the mission of recovery. So we're working closely with those folks who lost, unfortunately lost some property and structures in the Jones Fire burn scar, helping them through that process of state and FEMA recovery, and then also leading our community with some of the COVID recovery efforts. So we have to really think that whole life cycle of a disaster now and how we work together as a community to get through that. A couple other things I wanted to talk about. Nevada County has applied for many grants. Our office has submitted those. And one of those was a quick education on when there's a fire like the Jones Fire or like the Lobo Fire, it opens the county up to an opportunity for grant funding through what are called HMGP grants, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program funds. And so 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, 2018, our county had applied for grant funding to support access and functional needs defensible space clearing and for roadside vegetation clearing, approximately $6 million. And so we think we're really, really close to getting those funds approved. Hopefully we'll find out in the next couple months a real timeline to actually, activate those dollars and start reducing the fuel load through those programs. So I think that's pretty big news. But once I get a little bit more definitive answer with some dates, I'll get that to you. I just wanted to keep you updated there. And then with the Jones Fire, we were opened up to another HMGP opportunity. And so we're working on applying for more landscape level fuel projects with those funds as well. OES brought to the board with some board direction, seeking a recommendation on pursuing and exploring an amendment to our hazardous vegetation ordinance around fuel on open lands. And so the Board of Supervisors did provide OES direction to continue pursuing or exploring a modification to our ordinance. And so what this stemmed from was, communities like this coming to us and coming to the Board of Supervisors saying, there's large parcels in our community that are threatening, our residents. So how do we address that? And so we're working through that now, and we've heard you. And so we're trying to determine how do we get after that? And so we're going to work with our planning department to determine, is this based on residential zoning? Where is the most fuel threatening the most people? And then how can we modify and close the gap that we think we see in our ordinance? So more to follow there, and we'll be engaging this group to help us shape that path forward. And then the last recommendation that came out of our board workshop, I should have mentioned, in January, the Board of Supervisors met and had their board workshop, was with the CEO's office, OES has been given direction to conduct a needs assessment. So over the next year, we're going to work with many stakeholders like you and other groups to identify what are the gaps in our community that we need to close, whether that be more funding for landscape level fuel projects, whether that be identifying, maybe more of a hazmat capability. Do we need to bolster our services to those with access and functional needs, people with disabilities and older adults? How do we help them through PSPS? How do we help make evacuation safer for them? Maybe we can identify some specific areas where we can channel some funding to make them safer. So that's something that we're going to work on this year. We're going to be drawing upon our community wildfire protection plan, our local hazard mitigation plan, inputs from all of you to really identify that list and then maybe pursue that through grants and other means. So more to follow. But that's all I've got, Bob. And if anybody has any questions, we'll take them.
I think that's plenty, Paul. It's a lot has been accomplished over the past 12 months. It's amazing what everybody has done.
Been quite a year.
Any questions of Paul?
See, Nick Johnson's got his hand up.
Yeah, Paul, thank you very much. So, Paul, I ran across a presentation from last January, that was posted on Nevada County, and it was an OES presentation about the goals of OES, all the grants that you've applied for and everything. It was a really good presentation. And I'm sure that COVID's probably, impacted quite a bit of that. Is there any thought about updating that and sharing that with the community here?
Yeah, that's a
You
great
know-
suggestion. I think the challenge we've run into is that we've applied for a lot of grants. We just haven't heard back. And I think some of that has to do with probably COVID, and FEMA's been behind
Right.
on answers. So we're starting to see that they're bunching up, like the 2017 Lobo Fire funds are now, bunching up with some of the requirements for
Right.
even 2020 funds. But yeah, no, that's a good suggestion.
You know what presentation I'm talking about?
I think, is it the one that we showed to the Board of Supervisors that listed all the state grants? And
Yeah,
federal grants?
exactly. It wasn't clear who presented it to who, but I think you're right. You're spot on which one it is. That would be great to see an updated thing going into this year. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay,
Got a
that's,
quick question. Oh,
Susan?
Susan, yeah.
Pete, go ahead.
Okay. I know, Paul, you've been talking about revising the CWPP out there in the future at some point. Is there any timing? You have to give us a timing estimate now when that'll be worked on?
Yeah, so one of the things that we applied for with the 2020 hazard mitigation funds was to fund the rewrite of the CWPP and the local hazard mitigation plan. Local hazard mitigation plan, if you don't know, it's a really robust document. It's like 900 pages. We have it linked on our website, and it describes every hazard that could hit us in Nevada County, from dam failures to avalanches to wildfires. And then we see the CWPP as, it really could be the wildfire chapter of that, but there's a lot of overlay. And Chief Matthias, who's been here longer than me, and maybe Patrick Mason can talk about it. Some of you probably contributed to the writing of the last CWPP, maybe even Jamie Jones. So I wasn't part of that process, but what it really should be is if you don't know, it should really be a representation of everybody in the community and a rack and stack of the top wildfire projects that we have. So I don't have a good answer as to when we would hear back on those funds. I would hope that we would be able to get to work on it in 2021, that we would be approved and be able to get a contractor, a request for proposal, and get a contractor and actually start working on it in 2021. But that would be my optimistic outlook.
Susan?
you.
Yeah, Bob,
Yeah, Susan?
my question is actually for Patrick. Patrick, you mentioned the 59 unfounded complaints because there was nothing enforceable. Is it safe to assume that you're able to get back to the people who filed the complaint and educate them on why there was nothing enforceable there? Is that part of the process that you're able to do to finish those up?
Yeah, every time that we do have an unfounded case, when you submit a case on the county system, basically you create that login. So you're going to see that the complaint was basically unfounded, and we definitely try and reach back out to that person and let them know why. And it's just that we have to operate within this box, and we definitely explain that to them, and we do encourage them still talking to their neighbors, whatever it is, and seeing if they can get some movement, but there's just nothing we can do on our side.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Diane? Diane?
First up, yes, thank you. I would like to suggest that the term unfounded is very demoralizing. And if it could be unenforceable, that might be less demoralizing. But I'd like to ask Paul, is water mapping on your list of grant funding possibilities, given that I'm not anywhere near NID. I do have a lake across the road, but I know the Greenhorn Firewise community is looking at water mapping as one of our priorities for 2021.
So
And being able to help neighborhoods get access to water. Thank you.
yeah, thanks, Dan. We had that on our on our goals for last year. We didn't include that as an OES goal for this year, but I do think that could make the cut for our needs assessment. You know, I'm not an expert on that. I would have to defer to our fire folks to see if that really is a gap as far as listing water resources, and if we need to bolster existing, you know, whether it be stock ponds or tanks to support, you know, wildland firefighting. But I would really defer to Chief Matthias and Patrick Mason on that.
Water's a great thing, but it can't just be an initial cost. It has to be maintained. So, you know, honestly, we bring water tenders, and if you have a water source across from you, that's a water tender is way more convenient. You know, some of our local folks know a lot of the water sources, but would that information be great? Yeah, there's a couple of programs we're, you know, possibly work on in the future, and our dispatch certainly has some of that information, and it is going to get updated with some new computer programs that are on the horizon, and all that's great information, and it certainly will be part of the CWPP as well. So we update that, we can put that kind of information in it. So yeah, we will definitely keep it on our radar, and your comments are well taken.
You know, one thing I'd like to add to that is, of course, I mean, we'll take water wherever we can get it, but the water storage has to be built in a fashion that we're able to pull the water out of it. And one thing that I think of that comes to mind immediately is these plastic water storage tanks. Everyone wants to put them on their property and put water in them so we can get water. But the problem is that we pull water out of them so fast, they've got to be vented correctly. Otherwise, we're just collapsing the tanks and ruining their tanks. So it's something pretty specific. If you want to email me, I can definitely send you the water standards for our fire district, and it explains exactly how water storage has to be built. That way we can access that water.
Thank you. I know that I've talked with Terry McMahon about this, but I'd be glad to be sure I have the right information. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jamie, anything new from the Fire Safe Council?
A couple things. I spent my day on the Protecting Your City from Wildfire. It's a 2-day event, and they went over a few items which I thought might be of interest for the folks here. While the governor's budget is in preliminary stages, they did outline some budget increases for wildfire prevention and mitigation, with the caveat that, and if we want to see those remain in that budget, that we should reach out to our local legislature and write letters of support for those efforts. But one of the key takeaways today was that they're looking to increase the efforts from 75 million to $1 billion this year. Like I said, it's not set in stone, but man, that would be amazing, right? And so they're looking at things from, you know, helping low income and seniors with home hardening and defensible space, with implementing more conservation corps crews, job creation and business development in the fuel reduction arena, with microloans and 0% loans, things of that nature, equipment loans. And then specifically right now, what they called out is that they're looking at trying to fund the fire prevention grants at 130 million and the forest health grants at 73 million. And an additional 85 million for capacity and planning, which typically comes out of that fire prevention pot. So, I mean, that's a lot of really great news, and it might be pie in the sky at this point. But if we have an opportunity as a community to really reach out to the folks to support that budget moving forward, I would definitely suggest that we all do that. I mean, that's great news moving into what was a rough 2020 or out of a rough 2020. So there could be some really great opportunities for wildfire mitigation in California if they continue on that path. So that was my report from my day on the event. But what I did want to share is Fire Safe Council. Our DSAVs have gone down over the last few months. Most of that has come with the stay-at-home order, which has now been lifted. So we anticipate that we'll be seeing a lot more requests for defensible space visits or advisory visits. And so I'm hoping our volunteers are still willing and ready to go out and start performing those in the community. Still COVID compliant, of course. And then we have a couple of openings for volunteers in the office for some administrative tasks, phones, things of that nature. We used to run a pretty robust volunteer program inside the office. COVID kind of paused that, but we're still able to do some COVID compliant volunteer opportunities within the office. So if you're interested in that, please reach out. And then lastly, we are putting requests for proposals out for a new accountant for the fifth stage in our control process of accountability for a nonprofit. So if you know of anybody who's interested in putting in a proposal for accounting services with the Fire Safe Council, they can email me directly. And it's jamie@rufiresafe.com, and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Okay, so going on to other things for tonight. Patrick, can you talk a little bit about the proactive program that's going on now with the defensible space inspectors and what somebody might expect if one of those proactive visits results in a positive finding?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned before, we've transitioned to a more proactive base during the winter months. And with that, it means last year we identified high hazard areas with escape routes. And we really wanted to try and target those areas and getting the vegetation back off the edge of the road. But keep in mind that we can only do private roads. We can't do county maintained roads. So we've identified some areas, ground truthed it with all the local fire agencies, passed it out to their chiefs, and came up with a list that we identified. And being proactive is we're literally going to go to a specific area, drive down that road, and as we drive down that road, we're looking at the vegetation on the sides of the road. If for some reason that vegetation is not back far enough or it's totally overgrown the road, we'll identify the address and then we'll open a hazardous vegetation case. With that case, it's nothing against a property owner. It's not a black mark against a property in any way. It's really, we developed a letter we send out to the property owner to let them know, hey, we got to brush the vegetation back away from the edge of the road a bit. It's all educational. We just, of course, want to work with the property owner. And it was through this group, we did identify that our letters were a little bit off. They were a little bit strong worded. So we have gone back and revamped all of our letters for the hazardous vegetation program and really tried to just be as most educational as we can in providing the violations. Something that was brought to our attention we didn't even notice was that when somebody received a letter, the violations are actually listed on the second page. The first thing listed was, hey, you can get a citation. Here's your citation phases, 130, 300, whatever, 1300. So we've revamped all that. The citation and stuff is now back on the second page. We try and let you know what the problem is, how you can fix it. And then, of course, if there's ever any questions, you can contact the DSI inspector directly. On all those letters, they put their cell phones, so you have a direct tie to them. And ask any questions. They'll come back out, meet with you. And like I said, bringing on this third inspector now. I think the month of December and January, we're pretty close to about 70 proactive inspections now. So we're starting to ramp up on those pretty good.
That's great. So I think the takeaway message is here, if any of your neighbors get a letter from the county about their roadside clearance, there is a phone number to call, and there is an inspector who's more than willing to come out and discuss the vegetation on the side of the road. So it's it is an educational thing. It's not a law enforcement negative thing to be viewed. So help your neighbor understand what's going on if you get one of those phone calls. So thank you, Patrick. Especially appreciate you helping keep the neighborhood safe. Vicky, do you have a question? I see.
I do. One question that we've gotten asked by our people in our community is, it looks like the fact that you had a hazardous situation is kept in a database online and it stays there forever. Is there any thought about, like, once somebody corrects it, is removing that flag? Or, and I think it's because this particular person was concerned about fire insurance, that if an insurance company thought they weren't doing their job, that might be an issue. Any thoughts?
We actually have not even discussed that option about removing that. And I don't know how that would go with the County of Nevada. And ultimately, we're falling under code compliance. So with that, I'm going to have to follow up and see how they work that system and if those cases can be removed.
And thank you for enhancing your process. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Okay, Susan, there's a new section on the web, our coalition website that you wanted to point out to everybody. You're muted, Susan.
Sorry, thank you. I hope everybody can see this is the homepage of the coalition. And over here on the left is a new section called Advocacy. And if you were to click on that and click on Caltrans Highway Roadside Clearing, this is, I think you had seen our email previously that we had sent out. I composed a letter on behalf of the coalition officers to Caltrans when they had a draft assessment for public commentary last December. And thank you to Jeff Peach. This is one of the pictures that Jeff took showing how close the trees are to the size of Highway 49, I think it is there in one spot. And we did get a response. I sent the letter in by the deadline. We got a response from them, and anybody who wants to read that can click here. It's a nice letter, about a page and a half. I think they heard us. I think they heard that we feel strongly about it. And they said that, you know, they will make this kind of evacuation stuff a priority. And so now I think if we can get the general public to also write in and let them know that the speed is of the essence, you know, it's a massive bureaucracy. And they mentioned in their letter that it's a multi-agency, multi-project kind of effort to, and you can imagine, I get it, that, you know, clearing stuff like this when you've only got one lane in each direction. I mean, just imagine what that's going to be like when it finally happens. So here's the name and address of the District 3 director. And then here's the name and address of the director of Caltrans. And I think if members of the public send in a letter, then all of that will help. I put an email here from the District 3 guy. And I just have to say from my own background that if you actually write a postal letter and put it in the mail, that has a lot more impact than just sending an email, because it takes more time and effort to do that. It shows that the issue is really important to you and it means a lot. A written letter counts 10 to 100 times more than an email, because anybody just click and send an email. A written letter, they have to do something with it. It's in their hands, it's sitting on their desk. They have to figure out where to file it and all that sort of thing. So anybody who is willing to send that letter in, you can read the, boy, I just realized I didn't actually put our original, oh, there it is right there. Our original letter to Caltrans on the safety assessment project is right there. Their response is here. And so if you can write your own letter to both of these addresses, we'd appreciate it very much. And as other advocacy things come around, we'll be putting them in this section, and we'll have another thing to talk to you about like that relative to BLM next month. And that's it. Thank you, Bob.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so this is the part of the meeting where I we wanted to sort of go over what's happened during the last 2 years, and quite a bit has happened. Before we turn it over to Scott, a couple of more statistics that we haven't talked about. So currently, we have 53 certified Firewise communities. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, we had less than 30. We have 18 that are pending certification. The paper, as I understand it, the paperwork is in, and we're waiting to hear from the NFPA that they've certified these communities. We have another 20 communities that are waiting to begin the certification process. So the map that we started with 2 years ago, where we put the Firewise communities in pink, did not have a whole lot of pink. Now the entire community, the entire county is almost turning pink. It's really amazing to see the difference. And then this year we have 22 communities that are being recertified, and the Fire Safe Council is working on organizing that, the funding, and getting the fire scientists together to help us recertify our communities. Another thing that I find just absolutely amazing, and I think I trust you will too, is every year when we turn in our paperwork we need to do in order to recertify, is we turn in a spreadsheet indicating the hours that we've worked and the money that we have put toward helping keep our community safe. So we started keeping track of this in 2010, so 10 years. So over the 10 years that we've been tracking this, the Firewise communities have contributed $22,987,605 in labor and expense toward keeping their communities Firewise. And it's not fair to divide 22 million by 10, because in 2018, it was $2 million that we contributed. However, in 2019, it was $4 million. And not to be outdone, in 2020, the Firewise communities contributed $9,517,270 toward keeping their communities fire safe. And if your neighborhoods are anything like my neighborhood, only half the work is being reported. And even that might be too generous. I think it's probably less than half the work is being reported. So that's really amazing, and a huge pat on the back to all the Firewise communities out there. It's just amazing. And we keep these statistics, and I have used these statistics periodically when I'm asked by somebody to help them fight their insurance company, that they're being, their fire insurance is being discontinued. I'll send out the numbers saying, hey, the community invested $500,000 to keep their community safe. They're doing their part. And so these numbers are fantastic, and we do use them to our benefit. So thank you for reporting them, and please, keep working on them. We need to do our best to get the reporting up to 100%. I think that number would just skyrocket. But some of the things that have happened, we set up some committees 3 years ago. What's interesting is that we have been successful in almost all the areas in those committees. One of the areas that we set up was evacuation. And while we're not done with that, and that's something that we're going to continue to work on, I think, we do have the dashboard that the county set up. So we now have information that's available to us, and it's real-time information. And so we know what's going on in the community, and that will help us plan and help us in the act of evacuating our community. We've done things like set up emergency, our alert buddy system. A lot of our communities have set that up, and we have buddy systems so that we notify a select group of neighbors that we've worked with to let them know that, hey, it's time to evacuate. And we now have the help from the sheriff's office. They've authorized the evacuation tags that we can hang on our address sign so that we know who's evacuated. And this will also help law enforcement when they're coming through to notify us of evacuations. And we have the high-low siren. I mean, all of this is everybody's support and work over the last couple of years. But that high-low siren tells us it's time to evacuate. You hear that siren, it's time to get out of Dodge. One of the other committees that we had established was enforcement, and we have it. We've got Patrick Mason and the group that he's working with. We have the county behind us to enforce that 100 feet of defensible space around our house, and allowing us to reach over into a neighbor's property if necessary to help them understand and even force them if necessary to clear 100 feet of defensible space around our dwellings. And so we've been successful in that. Another one of our committees was a real estate committee. We were hoping that we would be able to work with the Board of Realtors to get some things done. And we haven't been totally successful with that, but it's still on our radar, and it's still something we're working with. But the town of Truckee has embraced it. And now, before a house is sold in the town of Truckee, they have to have a defensible space inspection, and the work has to be done or reserved for in the escrow documents before that house is sold. And I know that fire and safety in the rest of Nevada County is watching what goes on in the town of Truckee with thoughts of what we can do in the rest of the county as time goes on. And we're looking forward, as Paul mentioned, to working with large parcel owners and how we can make that parcel more safe. So a lot has been accomplished in the last 3 years, and it's the hard work of everybody that is on this Zoom meeting, and the cooperation of their neighbors that has made us so successful. And so we're looking forward to equal successes in the future. And so now it's my privilege to introduce to you Scott Beasley. Scott is going to be taking my place as the chair of the coalition. Scott's a local businessman living in Grass Valley, and he kind of has an in with the fire safety. He's on the sheriff's volunteer fire and rescue. I think I've said that right, Scott. And he's the director of one of their programs. And so he's going to bring some wonderful talent and expertise to this position. And I look forward to working with Scott in the years to come. So Scott, the meeting's yours now.
Cool. Thanks so much, Bob. And thanks to not just Bob and Susan, but to Jeff and everyone who's had a hand in carrying the torch for the last couple of years. This feels like one of the easier transitions I've ever had in the not-for-profit sector and given back to the community. So thanks to not just the core group, but to all of you in your respective neighborhoods for what's been done out there. And of course, to all of our partners with CAL FIRE, OES, and Nevada County. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. Again, my name's Scott Beasley. We'll get contact info out to you soon enough, so you know where to reach me if you got questions or comments. Nothing worse than a speaker who gives you their bio, but I do think it is a little bit relevant, so I'll try to keep it short here for you. In keeping with Bob's tradition of bad jokes, I'll say that I came into emergency preparedness and response by accident, full pun intended. In 2002, I was living in Detroit when the power outage swept through. And if you recall, power grid went down from upstate New York through really all of Pennsylvania, southern Canada, and into Michigan. So I was part of the Great Blackout of 2002, moved to Florida just in time for Hurricane Ernesto to make landfall, as I lived in my spacious 300 and something square foot apartment with one eastern facing picture window a mile from the ocean. Moved to Minneapolis, where my 28th floor office window looked directly down on the Mississippi River, where the I-35 bridge collapsed during rush hour. There's some better stories that are told over adult beverages than in professional meetings that include narrowly avoiding muggings in Albania and various parts of Eastern Europe, but again, maybe not so fit for this meeting. So again, just personal life, I've been quite literally running away from disasters, mentioned there. Professionally came to Nevada County about 8 years ago. I am a financial advisor by trade, so risk management is what I do. For a year of my life, I stepped away from private practice to work in high-end property and casualty insurance. At the time, I was just a smug 27-year-old who thought it was cool to be flown around in private jets to insure properties. I had no idea many years later I'd be in Nevada County, where homeowners insurance is one of the more prevalent topics of the day and definitely relevant to this group. And then as Bob referenced, I do lead Nevada County Sheriff's Search and Rescue, the Incident Command Team, a subset of which is our evacuation team. So all that data on the county dashboard going forward, much of that is going to come from the search and rescue trailer staffed by volunteers. So I'd be happy to give you some insights on that at future meetings, and then how to best leverage that for your own safety and that of your neighbors. So yeah, in short, that's my background. Biggest task up to this point, I will probably go down as the first and last civilian volunteer section chief of a Type 1 FEMA incident, which in plain language means, multi-day event with many agencies, from guard to fire to law, from many counties around the state. And that was, of course, the response and recovery efforts for the Butte fire, where I helped lead the recovery efforts as a planned section chief. So again, a number of lessons to share and bring to this group, but I'm more excited in working with the group and hearing, what you guys need. So only 2 agenda items I have to cover for you tonight are the first official item that's in the agenda is the working groups, and then the second is what topics you would like to hear in the meetings going forward. So Bob referenced that long and amazing list of the accomplishments over the last couple of years, and we really got to keep that momentum going so that a year, 2 years, 10 years from now, we are all feeling safer and better insured in our homes. And to do that, we really need to keep these working groups going. We're just asking for your help, and those of you that have yet more time and energy to give back to your community and this organization. It's not a big ask. These are not paid committees that will be meeting, twice a week. We're talking perhaps a monthly meeting, maybe some side projects if, tasks come up. So the ask, and I'm gonna, Jeff, correct me if I am, if I'm wrong in putting this up here in the, oops, I just responded to someone else. Thanks for the personal message. Sending this in the comment section, putting the link to the Coalition's Ask a Question page of the website. So if anyone is interested in these working groups, please click on that link and send over information. So specifically, the working groups that we'd like to keep going, as Bob referenced, evacuation. We already have team leads for this. So the heavy lifting has already been done. We just need you for a little support. Chris Riley and then Bob Long has agreed to stick around for the EVAC working group. This group is going to be working with the county on procedures, making sure that the public is well informed of all the options out there and the best way to remain safe in an evacuation. That's, again, the evacuation group if you're interested in that working group. We're looking to get a group more formalized on the focus of insurance. This is going to be led by Virginia, someone who I failed to mention earlier that's done some heavy lifting for this group and will continue in the future. What we're looking at is what are options for insurance. Maybe are there any changes in the laws that impact that arena, and some advocacy. I don't want to say lobbying, that might be a little too formal, but some advocacy, and maybe getting some letters out to Insurance Commissioner Lara to see if we can twist some arms here and there, or just point out from a positive side all the good work that's being done. So again, that would be the insurance group. And then what we're calling, the working name now is the real estate group. We're trying to soften the language on what was described as the enforcement group, but real estate. So this is, again, Susan has agreed to stick around and head this up. So we already have a team lead. We just need some other people to put in a little time as needed. But dealing with defensible space requirements and, what changes when a home is sold, and, working with all the more formal agencies and organizations that handle that aspect of things.
Scott,
And then,
Scott, can I chime in there?
go for it.
I just want to say that whole real estate thing in terms of requiring an inspection at the time of escrow, that's very much a kind of a pending long-term issue that Terry McMahon at Consolidated is monitoring and staying on top of now at Truckee, and then he'll be getting together with me to let me know if he sees anything that any way that progress can be made here in the Western County, with the biggest obstacle being that there are so many different fire districts and the volume of turnover is huge. I mean, there's like more than 1,000 houses sold per year. So the load on the inspection team would be huge. So there's a lot of issues there. So there's nothing really active happening at this point, but if somebody wants to raise their hand and volunteer to kind of just hang in there on it with me, then that would be welcome.
I think Shane just did. I think when you put a comment in, that automatically volunteers you. So Shane, thanks for the article.
Yeah, I just wanted you guys to know that there was a new legislation that had just passed January 1 of 2020 with regards to WUIs and homes being sold. So you might want to take a look at that.
I will. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Shane. And if we don't already have it, if you could, even if we do, for redundancy's sake, if you could, again, click on the link a couple of steps up and submit your contact info so Susan can get a hold of you and twist your arm for that working group. And then possible new group we haven't formalized yet, but recertification. Obviously, that is more of a fire safe than fire wise, but if there's one crossover point between the groups, that's arguably it. So really working with Jamie and some of her new hires on that process, and just liaisoning between those organizations. And once again, Bob Garza has agreed to step up and lead that group, so we don't need a leader, we just need people to help. So there's that. And then any other topics, so again, big picture, items that you feel need ongoing attention and reports back to this group every month, open for suggestion. Send those in, shoot those to Jeff, or submit them via the Ask a Question. So yeah, if you're on the fence, just throw your name in there, and we'll sort out what the real ask is for each of those committees. But we'd like to get those set. There are no standing times as of yet for each of those working groups, and that'll really depend on who raises their hand and signs up for those. So thanks in advance. Really hoping to get a handful of people in each of those groups. Any questions there before we press on?
Well, let me just say there is an opening for vice chair, because technically, and not technically, I am going off as vice chair, staying on the advisory committee, but anybody who would like to, there aren't any specific tasks involved in being vice chair, but that position is open if anybody's willing to help Scott in that regard. He does have a daytime job, so he's not always available as Bob was.
And if you think Susan and I are making eye contact with you right now, we are, and you should step forward. See, like 15 of you just squirmed in your chair. So yes, you. Great. So no questions about those working groups. I got a message from Sharon here. I'm going to grab this and send this over to Susan. Actually, Sharon, if I could get you to reach out specifically to Virginia, who is under the alias tonight of Warren Knox. If you could send that to Warren Knox, we'd appreciate that. Good deal. All right, so then the last topic we have for you tonight is the teaser for future topics. We want these meetings to be relevant. We want them to be worth your time. We want you to walk away with a page of notes that you can take back to your communities and your neighbors with actionable items and things that can be done. So I have a laundry list of things that I'm just going to throw out right now, but if you have anything in addition to what I'm about to throw out, by all means, once again, email Jeff or submit it in that ask a question area of the website. What we're going to do is collect everything that's come in up to this point and everything that some of you are about to submit. And we're going to get I don't know if it's a doodle pool or Google pool. I know we're going to let tech specialist Jeff Peach handle that, but we're going to get a survey out to all of you to have you rank maybe your top couple items. And then just aggregate those so that we can again deliver timely and relevant topics to everyone that's out there. So ideas that have already been thrown out, grants. So what grants are available for the individual communities, and what is what's realistic that could be applied for, and how to do that. Not all of us are seasoned grant writers, so resources for that. Each of the 4 working groups, again, we're hoping to have them report back, almost monthly if they have items to share. But if there are big items to share, they might have the topic for the night. So that would include insurance, that would include evacuation, that would include real estate, perhaps hitting on some of the legal considerations. Looking at the dashboard and updates from the dashboard, which falls under, maybe a technology show and tell. There was an article in the Union that hit on some of the fancy new tech that Paul and Lieutenant Jacobs have to play with in OES, but there's a lot more to it than what was explained in that article. I think it would give a number of you just a lot more confidence in the use of that dashboard for future evacuation. So perhaps a technology show and tell. That, again, falls right into line with information management. So where do you get data from versus where should you just plain not get data? If you have a Facebook account, you already know 10 answers to the latter half of that question, but getting the right flow of data in your hands during fires. Another idea throwing out there would be a survivor's story and lessons learned. Obviously, there's a whole lot of people in Butte County with things to share, but right here in our own backyard, if you're not familiar with the couple who were at ground zero for the Lobo fire, it only lasted about 10 minutes, but their escape from their home makes a great Hollywood script. So from that moment straight through the final filing of their final insurance claim, they've shared a lot of good lessons with me, and I think I could talk them into coming on and sharing their survivor story with some lessons learned. General situational awareness. So during red flag events, what do you do? Again, reviewing not just the go bag, but how do you stay perhaps on extra high alert with you and your neighbors? Partner subject to that was thrown out was neighborhood early warning evacuation systems. So Code Red is fantastic. If you have subscribed to it and if your local cell phone towers haven't burnt to the ground in the initial moments of the fire, and if you have your hearing aids, and if, But what are some things we can do in our own backyards to make sure that we're being safe and protected? So again, we're calling that the neighborhood early warning evacuation systems or setup. I think those were the big items that we had. Then perhaps maybe another goal exercise with Pete Williams, a repeat from a previous session. So again, I'm just throwing those out there as possibilities and things that could be done in these monthly meetings. But if anyone else has suggestions, we're definitely open to it. So if anyone wants to throw them out now, great. Otherwise, you're welcome to email them to Jeff at his Gmail address, or again, in the submitting a message right on the website. So with that,
Scott, yes.
Susan.
This is not a program suggestion, but Don Thane made a very good suggestion. And I think when I was showing the advocacy page and the letters to Caltrans and the addresses, I probably wasn't enthusiastic enough about requesting that each Firewise community, if all of you out there tonight listening to this, if you are actually on the committee or a coordinator of Firewise community, if you could have your Firewise community send a letter to those two Caltrans people expressing your desire that they pay as much of attention as possible, as soon as possible, to this whole situation about the trees and vegetation on the side of state highways, that would help. Because with at least more than 50 Firewise communities, if even half of you did that, that'd be 25 letters sitting on their desk. And if you need help womping up something that looks like letterhead with a little logo on the top, coalition logo, and maybe the logo of your fire district, we can stick that on there too. If you need help with that, so it looks official, I can help you with that. I will put my email in the chat here, and I can help you with letterhead if you need that. So that's one of the things that Firewise communities can do as a group to help support this effort, and we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Fantastic. So that's the end of our formal agenda tonight, kind of open forum. Anyone else have anything to share?
Hi there, Arnold Foreman here. I'm up here on Banner Mountain, part of Jeff's Firewise community. You know, I enjoy these meetings, and I really appreciate the work everybody's doing. We talk about a lot of details, and I think one of the things that always comes up is everybody's always saying we need more money, we need more resources to do the work that we want to do. I'm wondering if we have digested how much work we really want to do and what the final goal would look like for the county. How much money, if we had infinite money and infinite resources, you know, what would we do with that? And I guess what I'm kind of also wondering is, you know, how much progress are we really making when we get grants and when we, you know, activate the community? Are we getting 2% closer to our goal? Are we getting 50% closer to our goal? You know, I just don't have a good concept of what the big picture is here. You know, what does success look like for us? Is it, you know, thinning 50% of the trees from the entire county? Is that what would be required? You know, and if that's the case, you know, what would it cost to do that? Is it something that's actually attainable? So I don't know if that kind of information exists in the county level, or if anybody's compiled it all anywhere. So thank you.
Hey, Arnold, this is Paul Cummings from County OES. That's a great outlook to take, and that's a great question. And I think that I don't even think we have that total site picture. I think that what you're looking for is probably, like we talked about earlier, at a community level, that community wildfire protection plan, things like that, or things like the CAL FIRE NEU regional plan, where we take multiple different plans and see where they kind of overlay with that Venn diagram, and then knock them out one project at a time. So I think we could probably look at on a small scale things like the Ponderosa project, a 1,200 acre shaded fuel break that now is going to protect, Grass Valley in the event of a fire. It's going to create a place where CAL FIRE can make a stand against a fire. I think we can take those small slices of projects and see the impact on how they've, made us safer. I would also offer that there's other ways that maybe we can look at long-term if you're talking about like a 10-year plan. And now I'm going on a long tangent at the end of our meeting, but looking at things like the CAL FIRE risk mapping, right? If you look at the CAL FIRE risk map that shows in our community different colors that show either a moderate, high, or very high fire severity zones, we can try to see what we can do at a community level to lower that risk, right, in different places. Can we get it from a very high to a high in some of our communities? Those are things I think if we could chip away at that, we can show a quantitative difference that we've made our community safer, hopefully help us with getting insurance. And at the end of the day, when it comes time for a fire, it's less impactful and they can knock it down quicker.
Right, right. Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And thanks, Arnold. That fantastic question. And obviously a tough one to answer from the varying perspectives from OES to fire to insurance to real estate agent and so on down the line. But yeah, it is a fantastic question. So thanks for bringing that up. Anyone else? Last chance.
Hey, Scott, can I just add to what Arnold was talking about? You also have to keep in mind the last 5 years has been when we've seen the most active wildland fire. So the prevention side is fairly new. Now learning from the private sector that I'm in, you're seeing the budget, like Jamie was talking about, the potential of spending more money, but you're looking at like Firewise Communities as a whole. That is absolutely huge for our community. And the fact that we've grown to 53 in such a short amount of time that's astronomical. And at one time, the knowledge that I had, we were actually in the top 3 in the whole state for Firewise Communities. So and like Paul was talking about, these fuel breaks, the overpass, I think it's I can't remember the overpass, but that was created because people were going to Caltrans and requesting that they take those trees away from that overpass as you're coming in the 20. So it's small little projects like those that we look at as being successful, and then it's what can we do within our community to help mitigate the vegetation. So hopefully that helps too, Arnold.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Shane. All right, I think with that, we're at about an hour 15. I think, Susan, Bob, any final words here? Not that you're going away, you're just waving. Fair enough.
I have something to say. I'm Virginia. I think I have Warren Knox on the thing just because I signed in under his name. But anyway, I did want to thank Susan Rogers. She's done a great job as a assistant co-chair, and she attends a lot of the Fire Safe Council meetings, and she's done countless hours. She's a writer and has done countless hours of pulling together our communication for the coalition and sending it out to local communities, and also sending it out for the county too. And then also Bob Long, his past life is part of being an administrator, and he's done a great job in leading us and pulling together the coalition. And I think all of us, if you find the little clap on your screens, that would be a great thing to do. If I could hand you a bottle of champagne through the screen, I would do that too, but we'll have to wait till we all have our vaccines and meet in person for that. But they have done excellent job, and really appreciate their support and look forward to their continued support in the committees that they plan on doing too. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Virginia.
Yeah, it's nice to see the screen light up with all those clapping hands. So thank you very much. So anyway.
All right. Well, thanks
Scott.
for everyone for attending, and next meeting, save the date, March 2nd at 5:30. Assume that it will be back on Zoom. So with that, thanks to everyone in attendance tonight, and we will see you here in a month.